Today's episode is brought to you by Halloween.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, the Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much. Just another week of Buffalo Bills football, and I slipped slightly further into my depression. There's knowing it's going to be a rough season, and then there's getting through the rough season. Those are two different situations.
Yeah, you can be as prepared for it as you want, but it is going to hurt nonetheless.
Yes.
Knowing you're going to get punched in the face doesn't make it hurt less when it actually happens.
Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Exactly. But we've got again, we're on back-to-back weeks of stuff to talk about, so this is good stuff. This is good stuff. And of course, I mean, we're still in the anticipation, the waiting, the yearning for BlizzCon coming up in 2 weeks. Man, this is the second to last episode before BlizzCon.
Yep.
Yes, so we're gonna have another episode in 1 week, and then we will be in BlizzCon, sunny Anaheim, California, for BlizzCon. Gonna be great. It's Deathblow's first time, so that's gonna be it. It's big boy pants time for him for BlizzCon. I'm a relatively seasoned veteran at this point, although some people have been to like 100 BlizzCons, even though like I think there's been 10. Some people like Totem has been to like 7 or something.
Relative,
yeah. Totem. I remember Totem like last year was talking about, this is my 27th BlizzCon. It's like, wait, the company's not even that old. Yeah, no, I went to fake BlizzCons before. It was great. It's like, wow, that is intense. I think this is my third. Hold on, I can remember it by who played the concert. So there was Linkin Park, Muse, and Weird Al. So this is going to be my fourth. This will be my fourth.
Do we know who plays this year?
Not yet.
Go off on our first tangent? No? Okay.
No. And I just for reference, even though I love Weird Al and the other bands were all right, I have never been to any of the concerts.
Yeah, I really plan on not going to whoever's playing, but I do want to know who I'm passing on.
I'm trying to think of who it possibly could be that would get me to go. I don't know.
Didn't Metallica do it once? Because I feel like that would
time ago. I'd probably go to Metallica just because I've never seen Metallica.
Metallica, System of a Down.
System of a Down. Oh, and System of a Down is together right now. Like they're doing concerts right now. So it's now that you've planted that, now I'm going to be disappointed if it's not them. And I'm 100% going if it is them. That is one I would 100% go to. Oh man. That would be. Now I just want to. Now I'm just gonna be upset if it's not that. But enough about that.
I'm glad I could already detract from your BlizzCon experience before we leave.
My BlizzCon's already ruined. If it's not,
you're welcome.
So let's actually get talking about some relevant stuff. Talk about the world of High Noon Productions. We've been a little bit slower, but one group that's not been slower, of course, is the Blackwatch Report. They are the workhorses. They've, of course, got another episode out, and they reminded me of something, and also I set them up with Spotify. High Noon Podcast is now on Spotify, so if you want to go check out High Noon Podcast on Spotify, you can. Just search for High Noon Podcast, and you can also check out the Blackwatch Report on Spotify as well. So if you have been listening on some other lesser podcast app for your High Noon Podcast love and your Blackwatch Report love, but you've wanted to go on Spotify, now you can. We are on Spotify. We're both on Spotify. And Around the Payload will be on Spotify eventually. So everything will be on Spotify very, very soon. And High Noon Podcast currently is on Google Play. There is some, if anyone has any idea or has navigated Google Play before for podcasts, hit me up on Discord, because I got High Noon Podcast on Google Play, but none of the other podcasts have worked, and I have no idea why, because there should be no difference between uploading one over the other. So if you have any sort of experience about that, in Google Play, let me know. But let's move on and talk a little bit about what we did last week. Deathblow, anything fun and exciting for you, bud?
Just working with the team a little bit. We got the roster squared away, so we're down to a full 6. We can start to do all like the classroom stuff, like VOD review, which we've got tonight. So I had a full week of scrims.
Nice.
But yeah, the week kind of opened up filling the final 2 roster spots. So we got our main support player locked up. Pro tip, if you're in like the Masters to GM area and you're looking for a team, just play main support and you'll just get a team, because we had exactly 1 application for the role. Look, we're just lucky he turned out to like be a solid player and
Nice.
garbage, because we were to the point of like, we'll just train a diamond player, like we'll figure it out. Like
ready to train a gold player?
No, never that ready. Yeah, so got that figured out, did a bunch of scrims, figuring out like where we are in the world of scrim SR, which is different than what your team SR actually is, especially when your main tank's a podcaster that doesn't solo queue comp ever and fell out of Masters. So we've just been having fun as a team, getting everything figured out there. How about you, man? What'd you do this week?
Man, I've been playing Slay the Spire, which is a Steam game. It's like a solo rogue-like like deck builder type of game. It's really good. Highly suggested. And MTG Arena. Been playing a lot of that.
Yes.
I'm going infinite in Guilds of Ravnica draft right now. Like the prizes are actually decent. You need to get 3 wins before you get 2 losses in competitive draft, and you just break even. Anything over that is just.
It was 5 the max, right? For the competitive?
Is it 5 or 6? 3? I think maybe it is 5.
Because I know there's like a competitive draft and a non-competitive draft, and I've been going infinite in the non-competitives, or near infinite, anyways. Like my $20 has lasted me a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah, I put money in a long time ago, and I had a bunch of gems, and I now have like 15,000 gems. Like I would have to lose a lot, but yeah, that's been fun. Well, I feel like I know what's good in that, and if I want to win, I can do that very consistently right now. But if I want to play something fun, I'm not necessarily going to be winning in draft, at least. So literally like every single deck has either been Dimir or Boros for me, and with very little in between.
Yeah, I like won out with 1 Celestia deck, but
I haven't touched.
But anyways, we don't
gotta
talk too much.
Yeah, we sure don't need to talk about that.
We don't talk about Magic off the air, and then we get sidetracked by it on the air like every week. It's so funny.
I know. I miss talking about it. Okay, but let's move on here about things that we definitely shouldn't be talking about, but we're going to be talking about here. Whoop, that's the wrong thing. Nope. That's not the meme of the week button. That was a picture of the meme.
Overwatch today, meme of the week.
There we go. Okay, the drops are working. I just need to press the right button. The meme of the week here is, as alluded to at the beginning of the show, the Halloween pumpkin carving video. I didn't think it was gonna happen because, okay, I'm gonna try to go on this rant, not being able to breathe through my nose, and I might pass out, and Deathblow's gonna have to take care of the rest of the show if that happens. But we've got 2 subreddits for Overwatch, 2 main ones. We've got regular Overwatch and we have competitive Overwatch, and many longtime fans of this show, as well as basically every other show I've ever been on, have heard the infamous cupcake rant, where I hate when people post stupid content, pictures of the cupcakes that their girlfriend made for them, and post them in the competitive subreddits.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. Everybody, feel free to go check out the YouTube video of Blevins making stupid, talentless Overwatch themed cupcakes.
Okay, that was me
exists.
shamelessly
It's out there. Okay, go ahead, Blevins. Go ahead.
Okay. We have two subreddits, so like have the fluff and the garbage that is like, oh, these are the pins, these are the custom Overwatch pins I made, the Torbjorn pins. Don't put those in competitive Overwatch subreddit. Don't put, like, I get the Halloween, it's the LA Valiant. I get that it involves an Overwatch League team, but don't put the pumpkin carving video in the competitive Overwatch subreddit. It's just, why is it there? Competitive, like, it has nothing to do with. It doesn't even have anything to do with Overwatch, other than the players play Overwatch. Like, it doesn't need to be there. We don't need that stuff. Like, put that in regular Overwatch, or make like Overwatch fluff subreddit that I will just never go to. Get that garbage off of competitive Overwatch subreddit. Why is it there? I just yes, Blue. r/Overwatch is so bad. Yes, it is terrible. Which is why I want all of the garbage there, so I never have to go there. It's nothing but plays of the game and Overwatch cupcakes and stupid pumpkin carving videos. Or at least it should be. But there's pumpkin carving videos in my precious, leak-filled cesspool of competitive Overwatch subreddit. But at least I know what I'm getting there. I don't want pumpkin carving videos and cupcakes and custom backpack pins. Get that trash out of here. I don't want any of it. Get it out of competitive Overwatch subreddit. Keep it literally anywhere else, please. Okay.
Was that it? That was a pretty fast rant. I'm slightly disappointed, but one thing I will say is that everybody, by all means, direct your anything you stumble across this Halloween season of Overwatch themed pumpkins being carved at _Blevins on Twitter.
I'll ban
you know exactly where.
You know what I'll do?
Those images.
I'll add everyone in the Discord to different groups of different sizes, then I'll leave all of them. You'll have thousands of notifications.
I was gonna say Bob will leave all those groups.
I'll make a bunch of Discord Bobs, and I'll leave every group. You'll
Discord spam Bobs.
Discord spam Bobs. Discord spam Bobs. It'll be hundreds of notifications on your Discord. I'll add everyone in every single channel. Don't think I won't.
Okay, but nonetheless, no matter what he pretends like he's going to do as retaliation, we all know he's too lazy to do any of these things. So at the _Blevins on Twitter, when you come across any Overwatch related pumpkin carving, even if you just draw an Overwatch pumpkin and send it to Blevins, that's even better.
The only thing I have to say about that video being a competitive Overwatch subreddit.
Shame.
Shame bells for them. Okay.
Say that's probably funny for people that know what sound is playing.
It's like, I know that you know there's a sound playing, but you're not sure which one it is. Okay, let's move on here.
It's news.
Like I mentioned before, we've got some news. So we talked about it last week, but in 2 days from now, 1 day from podcast live land, Wednesday, the 24th of October, the Toronto Overwatch League team is having an unveiling party in downtown Toronto. I think it's actually already sold, in air quotes, out because it was free, but there's limited space. It's booked, so if you don't already have a ticket, you probably can't get in. Maybe they'll have stuff at the door. I don't know, but I remember they tweeted out that it was like all the tickets or whatever had been claimed. So
rush the door. It's at a church. What are they going to do? Stop you?
Yeah, churches are known for being very understanding, and never mind. Not going to go down that. Not going to go down that rabbit hole. But
secure.
If you are going to be there, I will be there as well. So if you see me, come over and say hi. I will be wearing that jersey back there with my name on it. So you'll be able, if you don't recognize me, if you're a podcast only listener, look for the giant bearded guy with Blevins on his back. That's me. Come over and say hi, and we'll have a jolly old time finding out what the Toronto Raccoons' real name is, or the Toronto Trash Pandas. let's just fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But that's gonna be fun. Definitely check that out. That you can look at the Toronto Overwatch Twitter for more details. Next up, Shanghai Dragons tweeted out some I don't know, some ominous
The announcement of the announcement.
the announcement, not even like not yeah exactly, the announcement of the announcement. They tweeted out coming soon October 22nd late. So that, I mean, theoretically that could be now for us. We're here on October 22nd, and at least for us it's pretty late. And it just is a picture. It's a season 2 Shanghai Dragons, and it's a very Chinese and dragon themed picture. I don't know. There's some Chinese writing on it. No idea what that says, but announcement of an announcement. Stuff for Shanghai. Exciting. As it's been said probably millions of times by now, only way they can go is up. So
yeah, we're about 4 hours away as we record right now from that announcement. So if you're listening to it on the podcast feed, the news should already be up. You can check the Discord announcements channel, discord.me/highnoonpodcast.
Yes, that will certainly be up. Okay, next up, we've got Blase has been picked up by the Boston Uprising from the Gladiators Legion. Any word on him? And what do we know about him, Death? Anything?
Yeah, he is definitely a player I had my eye on a little bit. He stood out at times for the Gladiators Legion, who didn't have really the best overall team performances, but they did play some unique compositions at times and did some things that people weren't doing in the past. But Blase is a really, really good flex DPS player, notably on projectile heroes. So his most notable hero, I believe, is his Doomfist. Also, his Genji is pretty well known. His Hanzo's been pretty good in the past. I will say I think it's going to be really difficult to justify playing him over Hydration, who's been so good for the Gladiators throughout the first season. But if there's a player coming in out of contenders, or I'm sorry, he's not staying with the Gladiators. He's going over to the Boston Uprising, where he fits in perfectly because they do not have a flex DPS player. Doesn't need to compete for playing time, even a little bit. Should just slot right in over mistakes in the second DPS role. This is the player that will be taking up the Dreamcasper spot that he was playing in previously. There are some questions here with the hero pool. Like, I'm not sure we've seen Blase really play the Widowmaker very much, so I do have a lot of questions there. But yeah, just honestly a really good signing for the Boston Uprising, even though he's now dead to me. So yeah, I think this is definitely a player to keep an eye on. If you're somebody like me who's always thinking about fantasy implications of signings and things like that, this is a guy that might be a little low in drafts because we've not seen him. But in fantasy, there's two things that matter almost more than skill, and that's opportunity and I'm blanking on the word for the other. Yeah, basically just opportunity and playtime, I guess, right? They're kind of a little bit both the same thing, but this is opportunity speaks a little more to the strength of the team overall, right? We know they've got a good tank line. We know Strikers lights out on the other DPS position, and we know they've got some solid support players. So I think this is going to be a pretty good signing here. They're going to probably need another DPS player that can come in and play some of the other heroes like Widowmaker, but I think we can expect to see most teams, unless you have somebody like a Carpe or something like that, if you have two really, really flexible guys, but it'll be the minority where teams only use two DPS going forward. I think most teams are going to have some form of switching in that role in particular. So I'm not overly concerned by the lack of Widowmaker on, the primary roster here. But we saw
mistakes was
serviceable, but I think they're going to want better than that, right? Especially they're still trying to, they were always going to need two players to fill the Dreamcasper role. He was so flexible at so many different things, and crossed the hit scan to projectile barrier like few players have shown the ability to do. But yeah, so I think this is a really, really good signing, and I think it's going to be pretty impactful, and I think we're going to see him on the stage quite a bit. So this is a great one. If you're a fan of Blase or the Uprising, I think everybody can be pretty excited. So.
Yeah, definitely a good signing. Love it. I like seeing. It's nice to see that the academy team players aren't like locked in to their respective Overwatch League team. It's nice to see them kind of wheel and deal into other teams. So
Yeah, needed to
that's
wait
good.
a little while longer to
Right.
do it, but
Mm-hmm.
like I was saying when I was talking about it, like it was a Gladiators acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
They just had no need for him there, right? So I'm glad they didn't sign him to block him. I don't want to see
Mm-hmm.
much of that going on, especially as it's smart for the teams to do it. So I'm not going to
Right.
criticize them if they do it, but at the same time. The league's better if we can kind of divvy up the talent a little
Right.
bit and get a bunch more competitive teams. And listen, there's got to be at a certain point, there's no salary cap, but there's a budget that these teams have
Right.
for operating. And to just sign a player that demands, his performance in contenders or whatever demands a
Mm-hmm.
decent salary.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see them, be able to find a spot where they can play.
How much do you think Boston being in the other division factored into this? Like, do you think?
Not at all, because this wasn't a trade or anything like that. This was just a
But
free
still.
agent player. Because this is after the acquisition period window where it was exclusive to signing your own academy players. So I don't think it factored in at all. I just think it worked out. And yeah, so good for Boston and probably good for Blase.
Yeah, good stuff. Next up, we have Soon and Damon, who was the assistant coach of LA Valiant, were transferred to an unnamed franchise.
Definitely not Paris.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
not Paris.
All Paris has to say is that they'll be announcing their roster soon.
And that was the start of announcing it. But yeah, so the writing's on the wall here. Soon and Damon are both French, they were transferred to an unnamed team that hasn't revealed their roster yet.
Yeah.
Paris sure hasn't done that yet. We think the expansion teams are waiting to announce their branding. So that there's some banner they can put over the players' heads when the things get announced. But the writing's on the wall with this one. And yeah, I honestly, as far as kind of analysis of this move goes, I'm not going to worry too much about an assistant coach leaving.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be a huge impact. The head coach will will basically always be the deciding factor, I think, in Overwatch League, at least where all the credit and blame goes when things go right or wrong. So we'll give the assistant coaches a pass for now. Their roles just aren't clearly defined enough to know what they're responsible for to really know how they're performing. But Soon leaving, a lot of people aren't going to be happy about this. The Valiant fans that just cheered his name constantly in one of the best cheers of the season one.
Fan equity for sure.
He does, and that is gone from the LA Valiant side now. Unpopular opinion time. I think this might be a positive thing for the LA Valiant because their DPS core was not their strength throughout the first season, despite their relative success. I think that was they were kind of carried by their front line of Fate and Envy, and then Fate and Space gave them just infinite room to pop off. I never thought Soon was really the kind of Widowmaker player you ideally wanted to have on your team. I don't think it's
fine.
Yeah, and this isn't criticism of him. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you he's a bad Widowmaker or a bad Tracer.
80 out of 100 player.
Right, but he just wasn't really great at either one of those positions, and those were really what he was asked to play the most. So now this kind of rips the Band-Aid off for the fans, right? It's not like they're benching him for a player. He's gone. He's not there. He's not an option.
It's not like he's sitting out in the playoffs and just completely throwing the team's chances, like not even showing
just
up
didn't
to the
feel
stadium.
like playing. Yeah, he's not doing that.
So we know that's not it's not a symptom that's endemic of all LA teams, just one.
Right. And now this gives them the opportunity to go out and find themselves a player that maybe has a little higher upward trajectory or a little higher ceiling as far as what he's able to give to a team. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell Paris how or how not to run a team because I think just exciting your fan base and getting them to love you is a really big, important factor of this.
Mhm.
And I think the French fans, notably just watching how they rooted for their team in the World Cup,
Right.
I think they're going to love this. So I think this is one of those
Absolutely.
rare trades that very well could be just a net positive for both sides.
Yeah.
It frees up the spot that the Valiant can now pursue, and finishing second in the league. You have to think they're a popular or a sought after landing spot for any free
Mhm.
agents out there that are still
Mhm.
trying to sign. So yeah, I think this is all around probably a pretty good deal for everybody involved. You know,
Mhm.
Soon and Damon as well. They clearly wanted to play for their home country's team, and now they get to do that. This is something we expected to see and really did see with the Seoul Dynasty, where Korean players wanted to play there.
Mhm. Mhm.
This we've only got one more season where they're all in LA, and then everybody goes back home, and you're gonna have a lot of like Finnish players living in cities that, you know what I mean. It's just
Right.
going to be kind of a little bit crazy for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And for Soon, he's going to get to go home and be closer to his family and everything like that. And sometimes an environment like that gives you more opportunity to succeed. I don't want to keep harping on this, but I just really, when I saw this one, it made a whole lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
I expected AKM to follow from Dallas,
Yeah.
and we haven't seen anything like that yet. I'm still keeping an eye out for it. The French players want
Just
to
get
play for the
Rogue
French
back
team.
together. Just run it back.
Just do it, yeah. Then
And I mean
the Outlaws have nothing. to worry about.
original Rogue. I mean original.
Uh,
I mean pre
Paul,
big
Paul
trade
Knox,
Rogue.
Paul Knox out of retirement.
Get Tavik back on that team.
Oh boy,
Let's get I want to go all the way back. Let's get Johnny
oh,
off
boy.
the stand. He's going back and playing. That's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, you think about obviously, well, it was really tough to have any story about Shanghai that didn't involve, oh, you're losing again. And it seemed like the Shanghai players really didn't embrace the I don't want to say stardom, but basically like stardom of being an esports professional. I think a lot of the LA players and the I guess just US based players kind of did, especially the LA Valiant players, the San Francisco Shock players. And like besides like Seoul and Shanghai there, and then I guess the US teams that had NA players, there's no other team that really like you got to represent your team and also kind of your country. And Paris is like one of the first times that we can in the in Overwatch League. So the French players obviously like you're going to naturally want to go there. And, if the deal's right, even if your team isn't necessarily, I mean, even if you're from Soon's perspective going to a worse team, we don't know, obviously, being the star of that team and being able to, really connect with the fans, I think is going to be huge. And it's going to be relevant too. You got to think about this as not just, oh, well, this year that maybe they're going to suck. We got to think out, 2, 3, 5 years out where it's like, yeah, you're going to be playing your home games in Paris. And you're going to have people, you think they were chanting Soon in LA. Oh man, are they going to be chanting Soon in Paris? So yeah.
Yeah. And the first season was so much like, just, I need to be there. Right. Like nobody wanted to be in the AKM spot. Outside looking in, everybody looks at every underperformer and goes, why isn't he there?
Right.
So everybody was just like, yes, I'll go. Just sign, just put the contract in front of me and I'll go. And I think that's how a lot of it went.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a lot of choice, and props to the Valiant here for not being stubborn and digging in their heels. They almost certainly could have kept Soon for another season.
Right.
But they let him go when they can get something back for him, right? Like as soon as he says, I want to play for Paris, they know we have 1 year to make that trade happen.
Right.
Or we're not going to get anything for him and he's going to walk.
He's just going to leave, because he's good enough to be able to do that. He's not, Milton, where...
and the spot and the fan base was just perfect. Like, there was no way that team wasn't going to want him. But yeah, so that team certainly looks like it's going to be chock full of European players. So if you're a European fan of the game or the podcast here, even if it's not France, in a way that London will never be able to appeal to you.
Mhm.
This team was the one that looks like it will be full of European talent.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to root for Florida anymore, so you don't have to try to do that or cling to that.
Whoa. Florida is
listen.
a contender here.
Okay. Um, they have bare hands.
I was going to say, in bare hands we trust.
I'm all on board there, but I will believe them as a success story just as soon as I see at least the rest of their roster, but probably the performance on the stage.
I don't know. I feel like, okay, hold on. Let's start off the festivities early this year. I think so. Let's see. Houston and Florida are in the same division, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to play 2 times and potentially I think that I will bet you something that Florida will at worst go 1-1 in that in the matchup.
I mean, that would just be a bad bet for literally any team in the league. Like, it would just you're just stacking bets in your favor.
Well, the problem is there's no way to play out a rubber match. They're only going to play 2 times unless we can't guarantee. Baby. Well, if they go in the playoffs, then yeah, we can do that. I think that they're going to be. There's no good way to do it.
No, there's not a great way to do it. We'll think on it though. We got a lot of time to work out the Florida
my underlying point here is that I will blindly put more faith into Florida than Houston this season.
Sure.
Just putting it out there.
I will blindly mock you for such a stance.
All right. Now, I don't even care about New York, or actually I care about Toronto versus Houston very much. But I don't even care. Houston versus Florida is going to be my new hype matchup. I'm going to eat so much McDonald's. I'm going to come over.
Exciting.
I'm going to bring a bunch of McDonald's.
Well, and then they'll have Miami Vice colors, so it won't make any sense.
Oh God, that would be even better. You have any idea how much better that would be? That's just my life. That's just everything that I want to have happen in my life right there. I might go full circle, full blown. And
then there'll be me, an intellectual, with my chicken soup and my Outlaws jersey. Yeah, just crushing Florida like a grape.
I doubt it. Okay, let's move on here.
With no roster, he does.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% am bought into Florida here. Specifically against Houston, not overall. Okay, we need to hurry up. I can already feel my voice leaving and my airway closing. Next piece of news here we have is Gunba transferred to the Boston Uprising. Anything interesting or exciting about this one, Death?
Well, the interesting stuff about Boston right now is like the unknown. I mean, other than the Blase signing, there's a lot of talk going on about their coaching staff. How involved was Krusty during the stage 3 run that they had where they were 10-0? There's been a lot of talk going on about their coaching staff. But what we do know here, obviously, is that Gunbo will no longer be on the Valiant, and he will be on the Boston Uprising. And I just view him as like a knowledgeable, again, this is an assistant coach role. We don't know exactly the impact that they all have, but we do know that Gunbo's a very knowledgeable coach, and I just kind of assume all the assistant coaching gigs are just going to work out and be fine, because all you need to do is like be working with individual players or reviewing tape to find clips to send to the head coach so that he can make the overall bigger plan, stuff like that. But yeah, so if you're interested in the Boston team, it's probably would behoove you to really check out what's going on with the coaching staff and everything like that. Gives you some interesting insight into potentially why Krusty left, and then the when he left is a little different timing. I don't know, but all that's very up in the air, so we're not going to be saying much definitively about that unless something major and definitive does come out about it. But yeah, it's all very interesting, and just it's crazy to see how muddied the waters got, how fast with like these esports people trying to fit into the traditional sports template.
Right.
And like, why is it, I don't understand why it's difficult. Like, why is it hard to just like have a head coach, have assistant coaches that report to him, and like they have
Egos,
specific
man.
duties and roles. Like,
It's egos.
why is it so hard? Like,
Well, think about it. With football, we'll use football. You have a head coach, an assistant coach, and all these levels of different coaching. And generally, either there's some amount of seniority or some sort of hierarchy, right? Like how often, I mean, there's young coaches in the NFL for sure, but I mean, maybe
Sean
there's
McVay is like 23 years old or something like that.
Okay.
Like, it's nauseating how young he is.
Maybe
and
I
he's a
don't
head
understand that. Maybe I just don't understand it. But there's some amount of respect, and they've like even the guy that's 23. I'm sure, unless it's just very blatant nepotism, like oh yeah, it's Robert Kraft's grandson is the head coach. Like okay, well, but
Whether it started as nepotism or not, his team sure hasn't lost yet this year.
Okay.
And they have
regardless, yeah, sure. So. Regardless, and maybe the 23-year-old is an outlier, but there's some amount of either seniority or achievement, accomplishment, respect, pedigree behind. There's something behind them that's like, okay, I understand why you're the head coach and why I'm the assistant coach, and maybe there's a little bit of internal like butting heads, and like maybe that's just going to happen whenever there's a difference in power, but at least from at some level there's a difference there. But for season 1 of Overwatch League, literally everyone's been playing the same amount of time. Now, maybe there's some people who haven't been playing since the beginning. You know, there's some people that have more seniority than others, but for the most part, everyone's basically at the same level. So if I'm coming in and you're the head coach and I'm the assistant coach, it's like, well, why aren't I the head coach? You know, we've been doing this the same amount of time, and you know, there's just not that same level of like, okay, well, you know, you've been doing this for 20 years, I've been doing it for 15, so you're the head coach and I'm the assistant coach, like that sort of thing. It's like, well,
I totally get it, and it makes sense, but like my answer to those people is like the way you get that head coaching job is to sit down, shut up, and do your job and do it well.
Yeah.
And like so I don't know, the whole thing. It's just it's not even like too surprising. It's just like funny. I just laugh
yeah,
at it.
no,
Like,
yeah, I agree with you. It's unjustified for sure, but like,
right,
it
like,
makes sense that people are doing it because there's not that like very clear delineation, and also people have egos, and also like everyone wants instant gratification. It's like, well, I've been playing Overwatch since the beginning. I want to be the head coach. Like, also is everyone else, man. Like, someone has to be the assistant coach, you know?
Right.
So. I don't know. I think we're gonna keep seeing these growing pains for at least a few more years until like, oh, you know, Flame has been, has been an executive for this, that sort of thing. Like, okay, well now there is a level of it, right? Because we have at least some people have a year of in Overwatch League, and like that's got to be worth a lot. So all these new people coming in, like if you come in. Even if, I'm just going to use Flame as an example, even though it doesn't really apply to him. If Flame had just started doing Overwatch stuff like 6 months or 3 months before he got signed to Overwatch League, he was working for Optic or something, and they brought him in, and he just did a really good job and was a great GM for Houston. Even if someone comes in. If I come in and say, hey, man, I've been covering Overwatch since the very beginning, I'm going to be I come in as the assistant for Houston or whatever. Like, I understand, like, even though I've been following Overwatch and covering Overwatch and doing all this stuff since the beginning, he has a year of experience in the Overwatch League. Like, he has that, like, level of delineation. Like, you can't, I think it means a lot to have that like notch on the belt, so to speak, for that. So I think we're gonna start seeing that differentiation happening, and we're gonna start seeing like the pipeline start to grow, like to build out, and like, oh, we have 5-year coaching veterans here, and they're bringing up the next generation of coaches, and we're gonna see assistant coaches that have been working with, we're going to see, I mean, we already saw it, Wizard Young going and being the head coach at DC after being an assistant and analyst for NYXL. We're going to start, I think we're going to be seeing more of that. So Yeah, that I think is, there's always the multiple parts of Overwatch. Like there's the games, there's the players, there's the organizational stuff, and the like. This is actually looking a lot like traditional sports, but also, like you mentioned, it's really kind of not in some ways. So we're going through growing pains, which is really interesting to see.
It's got the facade of traditional sports, and then underneath, it's still esports.
Oh,
right now.
Speaking of, we don't have this on here, but I just remembered another piece of news that is the, I guess, facade of traditional sports, is that Gen G Esports, aka the parent company for Soul Dynasty, has brought on Chris Bosch, NBA player, professional basketball player, as one of their player consultants. So that's an interesting one. We might be seeing. We definitely saw Chris Bosch attend some Overwatch League matches, and now he's working with the Soul Dynasty front office. Well, not technically Soul Dynasty, the whole Gen G Esports organization. So that's interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, another thing not in the actual notes on the news here, but it does look like the Dallas Fuel, this comes from Hippo in our Discord, the Dallas Fuel have found their stadium location for once things do locate to the main cities.
Nice.
And it looks like they put about $10 million into the Arlington Convention Center to transform it into an esports arena. So big news there.
Wow.
And likely to be one of the bigger esports arenas, stadiums, venues, whatever in the U.S.
Wow.
Though I'm sure that will balance out quite a bit as the rest of the teams. The people are going to want to match, or at least be in the same ballpark as whatever is being done here in Dallas.
Well, I don't know, man. Everything's big in Texas, so
it's true. Slightly bigger. So yeah, they'll be a little bit below, but
who knows? Yeah, that's Hippo saying it may not be the Fuel's location, but it's NBS that owns it. So I mean,
the Dallas Fuel investor put the money into the convention center, so that's me connecting the dots there. But
yeah, that's
hopefully Dallas Fuel paid $10 million for the Houston Outlaws home.
That's a leak right there. I'm not super familiar with my Texas geography, but I'm guessing Arlington is probably closer to Dallas than Houston.
I think so.
I don't know. We'll have to get A. Smith to fill us in on that. But let's move on here. London Spitfire has signed Guard from Element Mystic and Krillin from Dragon Ball Z, and by that I mean the latter. What's the story on these guys?
It is very close to Dallas and very not that close to Houston, I don't think. So yeah, it is unlikely to be Houston and much more likely to be Dallas. Okay. So Guard from Element Mystic. I'm trying to get to my notes here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Krillin might not be from the ladder. We looked.
I checked in the Discord on Krillin. Yeah. He is like ladder / open division. So he skipped a step, and they said basically he really stood out on the flex support role in their open tryouts. Oh, nice. So props to him for coming a little bit out of nowhere. Listen, it's just not possible, Blevins, to find a flex support off the ladder and have it back in Overwatch League.
Yeah, all of them are. You can't find any because they're all literally in Overwatch League. You found the one for your team that's not in Overwatch League.
Yeah, so that's it. That's over there. And then Guard, as I'm blanking, I think he is a DPS player. Yeah, he is like a hit scan DPS, kind of like your Tracer, if I remember correctly. So these are essentially backups.
I was gonna say,
I don't think
is playing over profit.
Yeah. I don't think either of these particular signings will be big impacts to the roster as a whole. It's not announced one way or the other if they're two-way players, so I don't know if we should expect them to be. But the British Hurricane team, notably, doesn't field Koreans, to my knowledge. Like, I think they were actually European talent on there, so a bit of a goofy way, a goofy interaction here with the full
Yeah.
Korean main roster and then the academy team not having Korean players.
Yeah.
Might be a bit of a problem for London, but nonetheless, these are developmental prospects down the line. Again, don't expect to see them have a ton of stage time, but guard from Element Mystic, I believe we said, right? Yeah, did a pretty good job. I don't. Didn't watch a ton of the Korean contender scene, so I didn't get to see a ton of them. But obviously, I did watch a little Element Mystic throughout the earlier stages of that season. So he did pretty well again. But it's so hard to like. I didn't put a ton of analysis into him because he's behind Profit, so he's not going to see the stage.
Can't. Oh, I mean, who knows? We have definitely seen London just roll the dice and throw out whoever they want.
If there's a team that'll throw him onto the stage without it making any bit of sense, this is the one.
Well, I don't know. Seoul might be the one that does that actually more than anything else. But yeah, so interesting signings. Probably not the biggest impact here, unless we're seeing some catastrophic changes to the Season 1 champions. But I would say crazier things have happened, but that would probably be the craziest thing that's happened if they traded like Profit or benched Profit. Well, we did see Fisher bench himself in the playoffs, so maybe crazy.
And we saw Shadowburn sit down. Nobody would have thought that was humanly possible, and that wasn't even wrong. It was just weird at the time.
Yeah. Well, because we didn't know that EQO was actual top tier.
Right, we didn't know he had ice in his veins.
Yeah. Speaking of Shadowburn, I believe he announced on his stream that he's like officially a full-time streamer right now. Or at least mentioned it. But I mean, he talked about it on his stream. Maybe it was a meme. I don't know. But
they're all full-time streamers in the off season. We'll see.
True. So yeah, we'll see. Moving on here, we've got Hotba traded from Philly to Guangzhou.
Can you send Sato too? This to me is just Philly getting closer to correct. As far as the roster choices that they make. Fraggy and Poco coming out was always viewed by us as a mistake. So trading of one of those assets to free up Poco to be able to play more is to me just a positive thing. Listen, and this isn't even against Hotbar, right? Like they used him to good effect in their time with him in stage 4 and in the playoffs. And I don't have anything against him as a team. Listen, they might have been the right tank duo if they'd have been able to start from stage 1, week 1, but they just weren't. So if nothing else, the time they spent with him in stage 4 and in the playoffs only upped his value here and maybe got them to get a little bit of return from him. That's something that we don't really think about as analysts when it's happening. Are they getting him some play time to get exposure so that they add a zero to the dollar amount they get when they trade him? That sort of thing can make a big difference. Hotpa's proven to be a flexible player. He did some DPS time in the playoffs as well. So that's great to see, and it's a solid addition for Guangzhou, who presumably is going full Korean / Chinese for their roster. So this is a good piece to start with. And somebody that has a lot of that experience of knowing the area, stuff like that. I was talking about this in Discord, that a lot of the reasons why I don't necessarily expect expansion teams and teams that have huge makeovers coming from contenders players is like that we talk so much about that culture shock going into season 1. So the teams that don't have that anymore and feel like they're just getting back into the rhythm of things when the season starts up, instead of like, my whole world got turned upside down. I don't know where I am. I don't know what to do with myself
anymore. I didn't even imagine this could be anything like this before.
Right. Having an anchor player that's been there and done that can mean a lot. And I think that Hotba has a good chance to be that for Guangzhou. Also, it frees up Poco, which I think the fans will like for Philly. And generally speaking, and as long as they get back to using Fraggy, I think we're going to be okay here for Philly's sake. So yeah, another one of these trades that feels like a net positive for both sides. And let's Philly go after maybe another another two-way player they can put in the off-tank spot. So I think this is a generally a good deal for both sides here. But I'll reserve judgment on the Guangzhou side until I see the full roster.
Was Guangzhou the team that released that video that was like, every team needs to be ready for us, and it was like it looked like a weird like.
I didn't see
storm.
it, but they're the team that we're pretty sure is going to be called the Railgun instead of
really?
the Blitz, which is just criminal.
Guangzhou Blitz, Guangzhou Blitz.
Guangzhou Blitz. Yeah. To just leave that on the table, Guangzhou, is just, it's not okay to me, because the man in the back yelled, "Everyone attack," and it turned into a Guangzhou Blitz. Yes, that could have been. We would have said that so much that would have been a drop in the show. You would have had a special place in my heart forever, and you just didn't do it. And instead, now all I have is a tweet with like 12 likes on it.
And the guy that you did it to that just did clearly
the guy from China completely missed the reference, and he's like, all the other names are still candidates, I just gave him the next line.
Hangzhou is Railgun. Hangzhou is Railgun.
Well, I'm never going to keep these teams straight, so they need real names so that I don't do this anymore.
HZ is Railgun. GZ is probably like Serpents or something.
Well, it was definitely Hangzhou Blitz now that I think of it anyways. And I just, in my head, combined both of these teams. So let's get them brands so that way I cannot refer to Chinese cities that will confuse my stupid American brain.
Yeah.
Just let me
GZ and HZ. HZ is Railgun. Okay. Before
now I'm stressed out and angry.
Let's get you more stressed out and more angry by talking about Seoul Dynasty here.
Sure.
They've signed new coach. Why not? They've signed off-tank Michelle, main tank. I'm calling it Marvel. I don't care if it's supposed to be Marv1. Actually, you know what? I'm calling it Marv1. Never mind. I lied.
Marv1.
I like it.
Marv1 it is.
Marvel. And then main healer Jexy.
Sure.
From Ardent, Lucky Future Zenith, and Element Mystic, respectively.
Yeah, why not comes from O2 Ardient. Or I'm gonna say that name wrong every time too. I don't care. It's a dumb name. It should be something pronounceable.
Marv1 is a great name.
Yes, Marv1 is phenomenal. But yeah, why not? Listen, all coaching, all assistant coaching gigs work. We've already discovered that this episode. So good job, found a good coach. In the off tank role, listen, the whole tank duo here, and again, sorry, Marvy, but you're not unseating Fissure for the starting job until he decides that he doesn't want to play in the playoffs, and then you've got to go in. So be ready.
Yeah, be ready at the most important and crucial time of the entire season.
Absolutely.
And and be ready to not play any other time.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I expect these to be kind of bench signings for the most part. We did have it was Lucky Future Zenith. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did put out a fairly good performance, and I think they were in Contender Season 2 in China and got first place. Not 100% sure there. I could be mistaken. I just don't expect them to really break into the main roster here and really see a ton of play time. Michelle's the one that really has the opportunity. When we look at the flex roll, it's Zunba there, and I don't think the flex roll was like unbeatable for Seoul last season. So there's an opportunity for Michelle to kind of
was unbeatable.
No, nothing. Except for Jae-Hong on main tank against Houston. That was certainly unbeatable. But it's going to be a little difficult for either of these guys to make their way into the roster. Michelle's the one with the opportunity to play his way in. But I think they're picking up a duo here just on the event that they, want to give them a break. There's some pre-established synergy with these guys. They can kind of hit the ground running. They know how to work with each other. So I would expect them not to break that up, but it's certainly possible. Go ahead.
Seoul has just rolled the dice in literally every situation that you could imagine. They bench Fleta, they bench Jae-Hong, they play whomever and at whenever time when it just doesn't make sense. So having, even if it never makes sense to take out Fissure, we know Seoul is fully capable of saying, yeah, we're just going to bench our all-star players. And at least now they're going to have a pre-built duo that is going to have some synergy that, maybe the combination of both of them is in some ways more consistent than what Fissure brings out. So maybe if they need less aggression and more synergy, maybe it's good to run them instead of Fissure. It's probably not, but Soul is known for experimenting.
Yes, just because it doesn't make sense does not mean they won't do it. But yeah, when we look at the other signing here, though, this is the one that I think has some serious potential to crack the roster, make a big difference for the team. That is Jexi from Element Mystic here. One of the standout players from Korean contenders. They did finish. They didn't make the finals, right? I think they were in the either third or fourth place. I can't remember if they like played out a decisive match to figure out who third place was or not, but the Element Mystic fell just shy of the finals there and did drop to the eventual champions runaway. But Jexi is a main support player, so he's going to be coming in playing the Lucio, the Mercy. He does have Anna in his hero pool as well, but right now I think you want that, you know, your Anna's going to be just Jaehan forever in that scenario. So he's going to be coming in and playing Lucio or Mercy if they want the Pharah, or Zen if you're on defense. In some scenarios you don't play the Lucio there. So but I think, you know, listen, Toby was not necessarily at his best. Nobody was well equipped to be a Mercy player on that team going into the season. This is a player that squarely has it in his hero pool, and I think he'll be easily their best Mercy player going in. But you know, he's got a real opportunity, I think, to unseat the Boop God here, even on the Lucio, and just take the mainstay spot on the roster. We'll have to see how things play out for them once they get together, start scrimming. But that's going to certainly be a position battle that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, as Toby versus Jexi for the main support role for the Soul Dynasty. So a potentially very, very big impact signing.
Yeah, and to put our foul play caps on, might be an interesting pickup because you can probably get him late, and he's potentially a starter that you can get real late.
Yeah, a late round guy that you might be dropping in week 2, but you also might have, you know, a starting player that never leaves the stage, and that would be great. So okay, man. Can't wait for foul play to come back. Can't wait for there to be playable fantasy Overwatch. This is what we were waiting for, to like do a foul play episode, though. So I want to give it one more week and see how many announcements we've got, and then maybe go through them with a fantasy fine tooth comb. But yeah, we'll no promises. We got to talk to A Smith, as he's definitely required for those episodes as well. But I think it's about time. We're getting close to a foul play. You know.
Also, we don't know if we're going to have a platform to play on, so we don't know.
I will do it on Winston's Lab if I'm absolutely forced to, but I won't like it.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they're going to be running it back. We have no idea. We have no insight into that, but
we do know our friends over at High Noon Pick'em are doing a fantasy game. I thought it just looked bad, but it did. Have more of a polish, I think, than Winston's Lab did. But we really just need either official. I don't even need official. Like, I don't need it on the Overwatch League website. That's where I'd prefer it, because that's where we're going to get like live scoring that you can monitor while the matches are going on, that sort of thing. So I do want it to be there, but I would just take anybody that's played fantasy football their entire life, or fantasy baseball, or just anybody that has, like, because right now that's what I don't think we're getting, is we're not getting anybody with the proper like fantasy mindset that you need to know, like, this is just a no, you can't do that under any circumstances thing. And last season it was like, sure, let's try it. And it's just like, man,
what if they announce it at BlizzCon? How hyped would you be if they announced fantasy at BlizzCon?
Pretty hyped, but I can't imagine that. There would have to be like an Overwatch League panel, I would think, and I'm almost surprised there's not.
It could very much be at opening ceremony. They announced Overwatch League at opening ceremony. They announced like all the Overwatch League stuff at opening ceremony.
Yeah, but it just, I don't know. It would be very surprising to me, but personally, as one of the small fraction of the
Overwatch What's Next, they would do it at.
Yeah, I would think that would be a little out of place there, but maybe there's an Overwatch League section of that is partitioned off. I don't know. We will find out, because we will be in that crowd with bells on, waiting for any news.
Yes, we will. Okay, that is a roundup of the news for the last couple of weeks. Let's move on here, and boy, did
really the rest of it's just touch on it, and we just got a
Exactly. I was
couple
gonna say,
announcements.
we're quickly running out of time, but let's quickly go into. Nope. Button stopped working. Okay, well, got all the important ones out because. Yep, that just broke. Okay, let's break
It's
down.
tournament talk.
Or let's break it down. I don't know. Whatever. Hold on. Let's see. Does it break it down? Nope. Stream Deck just broken. Thanks, Stream Deck. Glad I bought you.
Just as a heads up, we've talked a little bit about them in the past. The Gilded Gala and the Battle for California show matches. The Gilded Gala was between the London Spitfire and the Houston Outlaws. That is a two-parter. Part one, the part in London, has happened, and the Battle for California did happen as well. We're not going to go in depth there, in part because I didn't watch them.
No, I'm not
yes.
gonna.
I'm going to put them on when I've got time, but with the team and football season, that is a little tough to come by, so no guarantees.
It's gonna be a no for me, dog.
But also, those are just like fun, goofy events, and like there's nothing to take. Like analysis from them is silly, so we don't want to spoil anything.
Watch them
just
at your leisure. Have fun watching them. They're not for. We are not the show to cover those.
No.
Just go watch them and have fun.
No, they happened. Those VODs are there.
Yes, they certainly are. But we have a couple of things to talk about for Overwatch World Cup. Notably,
I'm thinking we should get deep into this next episode when we're like on the verge of going. But
we certainly will. But there's a couple of headlines that we'll go over for the World Cup. Notably, South Korea changed their roster, so their starting players are now Fate, Fury, Fleta, Libero, Jonak, Animo, and Carpe.
Less New York Excelsior is there, so that's dangerous because they're less likely to choke as they play against the U.S.
No SBB not on the roster now. Or actually, is it less?
Also, SBB is out. I believe Meko came out for Fury of the Spitfire as well. And then Arc came out. Yeah, Arc came out and Animo replaced him. So it's still a New York Excelsior. And if you look at the stats from what they were able to do on stage in the Overwatch League, basically the same play.
Almost exactly the same person.
Yeah. Kind of remarkable that they replaced somebody and got like the exact same statistical output. Crazy.
Very interesting. So, yeah, we'll dive deeper into that next week because next week is when it all becomes so real. But last thing I wanted to talk about here is that the Overwatch World Cup talent has been announced. So we're going to be seeing Golden Boy, ZP, Bren, Puckett, Danny Lim, Emily Tang, Fiona Nova, Frankie
That's
Ward.
Prova the Nova, I think.
I think that might be Prova the Nova.
That might be Prova the Nova.
Our very first iTunes review. It very well may be. Frankie Ward, Jake Lyon. It doesn't say that. I said that.
It should.
It 100% should. Reinforce, Sideshow, Mr. X, Mika Burton, Uber, and Zoe. So really, really great lineup. Where's Hex, man? Where's Hex? Where's
Hex? We don't got Moa. We don't have
no Monty double cross backstab this year. So they're gonna have to one up themselves because that was top tier. That's like top tier esports betrayals of all time.
I'll take Bren bathing in his kitchen sink on stage. That's the only thing that'll make up for it.
No, you see, they run it. They run it very professional-ish. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to get into those type of antics, unfortunately.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anytime you plan on being professional and you put Bren on the stage, you never know.
That's true. They did have crusty totems or idols or effigies or something that they made. So stupid. Okay. That's going to be it, guys. Like I said, we're going to be going deep into all of the news, which I'm sure it's going to be trickling in. Obviously, I'm imagining we're going to start getting, we're 100% getting at least one team announcement, if not many, many more or all of them we're going to be going into the World Cup more deeply, and we're hopefully going to be getting some more some rosters more filled out as we go into the BlizzCon Eve, as we like to call it. But that's going to be it for this week. Death, anything else before we get going?
No, that's it. Like you said, next week will be catching up on any more roster news. Like you said, I think the floodgates are open here. They've been coming too fast over the last couple days, increasing in pace. We've got announcements galore.
Yes.
And then we'll also be picking the World Cup final results here. We'll probably do full brackets and go down the list to get ourselves pumped up. Even though we low-key gave initial thoughts on the matchups.
I don't remember what I said, so I would be hard pressed if anyone that's listening does. So
all I know is go America, so we should be fine.
USA. Okay, that's gonna be it, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. You can always check us out on all of the normal places: Twitter.com/High Noon Podcast. We're at High Noon Podcast on Twitter, iTunes, YouTube, now Spotify. You can definitely check us out there and all the High Noon productions, as well as at highnoonpodcast.com. You can also always support the show at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. And you check out the show live on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. But that is going to be it, guys. For Death Blow, I am the Blevins. And remember, it's High Noon. Oh, right, the outro doesn't work because the buttons don't work. Bye, guys.